You guys have to see this lighting setup here. After I'm done, I'll take a picture. This is like amateur YouTube hour. Okay. This right here might be the death of Fujifilm. Well, okay, I'm being a little over the top, but this film simulation wheel that they started to implement on their newer cameras, their newer, I guess we'll call them consumer budget cameras, I think it's a massive mistake. Let me explain to you why. If you look at this wheel right here, you can see you've got the film simulations on it and then a C for custom. Now, the way film simulations kind of worked on prior Fuji cameras, as I'm sure you all know, is that you could go into the menus and you could dive through them and you could set up or choose your film simulation. And I get why Fuji probably thinks it's a better idea to put that onto a wheel, a command wheel up here, or a dial, if you will. I get that, to stop you from menu diving. But what most people did is that on these types of cameras, like this XT50 right here, or older ones, they would hit the Q button and just scroll over with the back command wheel on that first, I guess, tile in the Q menu. So you'd scroll over and it'd be standard, Acros, Velvia, whatever. Mine's on C2 right now because I have custom recipes. Which takes me to my next point. Most Fujifilm users get into Fuji, and if they haven't dedicated themselves fully to RAW, they are using the film simulations and trying to shoot straight out of camera JPEGs. And they've set up film simulations, custom recipes in their custom menus. So let me just recap for a second. In the old days, if you wanted a film simulation, you went into the menu and you changed it. It's one way to do it. The fast way to do it was hit the Q menu, scroll on the back wheel, you change your film simulation, and you're good. Then as you advance in the Fuji world, you get into custom recipes and you build those. And the way you built those was, again, in the menus, and you set your different, white balance shifts and whatever it might be, and then you would save them to a custom function. Okay? Now, on different cameras, like some of the new PASM style cameras that Fuji uses, such as this XS10 that I'm filming you on, and I had the XH2S and XS20, and those types of cameras, you could just assign a C1 function. Well, I'm taking pictures. A C1, turn off. A C1 on the dial, and you could go from C1 to C2 to C3, and it would just adapt all your settings for your custom functions. If you didn't have that, like this XT50 does not, again, you would just hit the thing back here, and you would scroll over, and C1, C2, C3 is an option on the back of the screen here in the Q menu. I can't have a hard time with that, in the Q menu. Okay, so why does that matter today? Well, because this film simulation dial, the way it's implemented, I think it kind of sucks. I'm going to be honest with you. It has a FS1, let me get this out of the way, FS2, FS3, and then the standard film simulations, and then a C for custom. And my understanding, now maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm going to prove how ignorant I am, is if you really want to do custom recipes, the way that you've always known and used them, you have to put it on C, which is what I have here, which is great. So you just go back to the old school way, and you go into the menus, and you choose C1, C2, C3 in your Q menu, and you're good to go. Basically rendering this film simulation wheel useless for me, at least the way I shoot it. The problem I have is this. In other cameras, this wheel was used for other important things. XT cameras, it was the ISO dial, I believe. On this XS10 I'm filming you on, it was kind of like an open wheel, so I use it for exposure compensation. Just the other side of the camera was used for other things. And the fact that they dedicated to this and it's not changeable, you remove, I guess, customization, customability from somebody who doesn't shoot it with this type of mindset going into the camera. But additionally, on my XM5, mine broke, and that sucked. And when it broke on standard always. Now, maybe that's an anomaly, and I guess it probably is, because I haven't heard of this issue being widespread elsewhere. But mine broke. That sucked. But the problem I actually have is this, and this has happened to me now. I think it happened 2 or 3 times in the XM5 before I broke the wheel, and it's happened to me twice already in the week that I've owned this XT50, and it's driving me kind of crazy. When I pull my camera out of my bag, somehow, or it's on my hip, this will sometimes get turned. Maybe not all the way, like that full click, but like right here in the middle. You see that in the middle? There's 1, 2, right? But in the middle, it can do this. The reason that's why the problem is because somebody like myself, and I assume like many other Fuji users, who are shooting straight out of camera, pick up their camera, turn it on, and they know they left the camera in my case C2, which is a black and white film simulation, Acros red, and they take a picture, and it's not in black and white. Even though you have C2 selected on the back of the camera, I'll show you how this works. If you move that dial, it overrides it. So let me show you real quick. You look at the back of my camera right here as C2, and if you can see that, it says black and white, and it says red. Okay, this is a black and white. You can see if I get rid of the film, it's a black and white simulation. You can see that right here. Now, if I just accidentally take this command dial, click it that way, it's now on standard and has overridden my custom function. Even though, if you hit this button right here, the Q button again, oops, wrong button. Even though if you hit the Q button, it still says on the back, C2, and I have it named black and white. C2 is a black and white film simulation. But because I bumped that dial, it overrode that setting. You might say, well, Eric, go into the menu and show me. If you look right here on the back, it says film simulation setting, and it's in standard and it's grayed out because the film simulation dial is on that. As soon as I click it back to C, now it highlights and turns back on, and it goes back to my standard custom function that I had before. The reason why this sucks is because now I can count probably 5 times between the XM5 and the XT50 with limited use. I have picked up my camera, go to take a picture, and it's not the color simulation, film simulation that I have set in my custom function. It's something else. It's got moved somehow. Okay, so not only is the wheel prone to breaking, because that's happened to me already, it's not locked. They need to lock this. If they locked it, I guess that would resolve the issue. But you still removed a function for me that I used to use this wheel for other things. But here's the biggest problem. This is not intuitive. One of the beautiful things about Fuji is that if you understand the exposure triangle, it's very, very simple to use. You don't have to go menu diving. You can set aperture on your lens, you can set ISO on the top dial, and you can set shutter speed on the other dial, and the exposure triangle is at your fingertips. And you can literally just turn the camera on, and you really don't have to even menu dive after you set it up because you can just use the Q menu to change your film simulations. And then, of course, you have like, you know, the focus mode selector in the front. It's one of the things I love about Fuji, the retro aesthetic, but everything was on the outside of the camera for me. Once I set it up, it was all there. And then they added like the movie and still switch on the XT5, or maybe it was the XT4 before that. And like it just made it, I didn't have to ever go in the menus. I loved it. And they've screwed this up. And so for someone who's a brand new Fuji user, not only do you have to understand how the Fuji camera works, can you imagine how confusing it is for them to have this film simulation dial, but also set up like a custom recipe, and maybe you bumped it and you don't know what's wrong or why? I think they're screwing up. They're putting this film simulation dial on beginner or like consumer cameras because they want to promote their film simulations, but it's confusing. I think it's implemented in a confusing way for normal people that don't study cameras like I do. And it's easily bumped, so you can change the settings on accident with this dial. I just think it's a bad thing. I have now experienced 2 cameras with it, and I am totally against it. It needs to go away. I think it's a bad thing. So, I'm against it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. You guys tell me if I'm thinking about it the wrong way or whatever, but for me, I'm quite irritated with that film simulation dial because the pictures I took yesterday were supposed to be in black and white. I took a couple real quick and I went to review them and they were in color, but the moment had been missed. Not a big deal because I shoot also in RAW, so I can go back and edit it if I want, but I wanted to share that from my camera directly to my phone so I could post it on social media, and I didn't have time or a computer to go in and do that. Of course, I can go in and do like the RAW conversion in the camera, but I'm not sure In fact, I haven't figured out yet how to apply my custom recipe settings to a RAW conversion. I don't think you can. So basically, if I wanted that specific image with my straight out of camera film recipe, I missed it. And to me, that's annoying. I think this is a bad implementation. What do you guys think? But let's do this for the thumbnail because we're going to need to. There's your thumbnail. I'm going to do a screen grab on this. See you guys in the next one.